Hi there, and welcome to the Quantum Bridge with me, Casper, and my co-host, Gary.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're very lucky to be joined by a guest, Joe, over in Australia. And we're going to be talking with Joe about a number of things, but certainly about her work in the area of architecture and the sort of more spiritual outlook that she brings to that. Hi there, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. I'm just seeing this flicker of light coming around, so I'm wondering what it is behind. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the angels are visiting.
Yes.
Yeah, it must be because nothing else is on flickering around. So
It's fine. It's not too bad. It's okay.
Just your energy, Joe.
there it is. That's my energy.
So a bit of background for everybody. We have contacted Joe, and the reason for that is that Joe is active in many areas, but specifically in the area of architecture. That's a broad term. So maybe Joe would be kind enough to say a few words about the day-to-day work that she does, and perhaps the differences in the way that she works and views architecture to the way that maybe it's more traditionally looked at. So for a moment, over to you, Joe, if you'd be kind enough to do that.
Sure. So I created ArchiSoul Architects, which is Architecture with a Soul, back in 2013 after running my own practice for, gosh, since my daughters were very little. Prior to that, I was Joe Gillies architect. Now, creating Architecture with Soul, what does that actually look like? So apart from actually doing the day-to-day work, which is dealing with councils and clients and like talking concepts and looking at materials, things like that. So I'll kind of start with what does that actually mean in this current 3D environment. So that is looking at low toxic materials or non-toxic materials. It's looking at more natural materials. It's looking at spaces that actually make people feel really good. So it's a positively charged space. So their emotional connection to their space is very important to me into the design process. And there's a whole lot of tools that we use in that process. And those can be something simple as just looking at passive principles, getting in the winter sun and minimizing the summer sun, and having, sort of windows that are thermally, sort of cooled thermally broken so that you don't get a lot of the wind drafts and things in. But it's basically looking at materials that actually honor the soul, honor who we are from a physiological viewpoint, but also they charge your emotions in a way that you actually feel grounded and in a state of homeostasis, which is basically balance, which is what we're looking for when we're in a positively charged environment. So it brings us back to groundedness, and that can be in a space that is, commercial building or a house. We do a lot of houses. We've done a childcare centre. We've done a big commercial project, and we just have completed a project in Costa Rica, which is a sound healing dome, and the other one is like a maloca, a ceremonial place. They haven't actually started being built yet, but we've drawn in the capacity of how it sits in the environment through things like shamanism and ley lines and the placement on the land and how the spiral of energy coming into it. And then there's the technology used inside it, because sound healing is something that I'm very interested in, because the space must have the resonance in order for the sound healing. And sound can just be bringing you back to homeostasis, and so can smells and lighting, things like that. So, and I'm also involved with the pyramids of Chi, which is in Bali. So we're looking at doing a few more of those together, and I'm working on behalf of, the pyramids of Chi in terms of, helping them with their material selection and with the spaces. So we've done a lot of exploratory work. So I'm their kind of go-to architect to look at how we create those buildings, because believe it or not, sacred geometric buildings a dome and a pyramid might sound easy to design, but they're actually not because of the detailing involved. But the resonance of the spaces make you feel amazing when you're in them. So the day-to-day stuff does tend to be very frustrating with the councils. So we always employ a town planner to work with us for the planning, because the planning permissions, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in New South Wales, it's extremely bureaucratic, and it can be very much, let's say, a very dense kind of environment of bureaucracy that is just, it honestly, that's why I just hand it over to a town planner, because it really, it can be the part of my job that I really don't enjoy. And I don't think a lot of architects in Australia enjoy that part of their job. But anyway, so, and then I have 8 staff, and I have at least 15 projects, and I have every single one of those projects running in my head, but I've also got quality assurance systems in the office so that we know that there's, you know, succession planning, and there's, you know, tight systems of invoicing and billing, and, you know, it's a business structure, quality assurance process.
Joe, can I jump in for a second and I just wanted to ask the question, do all of your clients, I appreciate that what you've just spoken about, which is beautiful, it's lovely the work that you're doing, and the area, I appreciate some of it's tough due to the bureaucracy and so on, but actually what you're actually doing, and once it gets done, will be amazing. Do all of your prospective clients understand that you're coming to your sort of architectural vision from this space of not just the sort of standard framework, but from this sort of intuitive and this connected capacity? And is that what draws people, even commercially, to work with you, or does that come as something that is just sort of an additional thing that they say, wow, that's either great or that's a bit weird for us, or whatever? How does that, as part of your process, how does that come about?
I was just going to add, if I can, Joe, so you don't get, because it's similar along what Casper's saying, that transition, you know, how well is or easy has that been to go from
to be received,
from traditional architecture to bringing this in? Has it been received well?
So I would say, yeah, it's definitely been received well. There has been like a few clients who just like the name, and they just go, oh, well, you know, that kind of works, and that name is really lovely, and I like the idea of soul. And I often get people say, you know, I just was attracted to your name, and then I looked on your website, and, you know, and that's often what happens, and then I like everything on the website. And but then I have other people who are just seriously looking for Class 2 or whatever, which is for another form of registration, and they don't really care about the name, they just want a Class 2 architect. And so, and they're a bit more difficult because they're looking at costings and bureaucracy and getting their small renovation across the system, which we tend to not do so much, as much as possible, because they can be fraught with a lot of bureaucracy. But having said that, there is the Costa Rica job came through from a referral where one of my friends was at an airport in Colorado, and I was starting to promote my services from the side as a more sacred geometry, sacred space architect. And that's how that referral came about, because there's not too many of us architects that are doing the sacred geometry and the sacred spaces. So
I was just going to say, Joe, how unique is the work that obviously you have been doing, and now, and when you started, has it become more prolific? Are there more people working like that, and is that more accepted, or is this still considered very fringe?
Look, it has. Look, to be honest, like I've been envisaging, and I've been downloading through my intuitive kind of meditations, healing centers is where the world is going to be heading, because there's going to be a reaction to the allopathic system, and people are going to be looking for more advanced types of spaces and retreats and centers that can actually make them feel, you know, healed mind, body, and spirit. And remember that healing is the return to wholeness, which is sustainability, which is return to wholeness. That's the true meaning of the word sustainability. And that true meaning has got lost in the climate narrative. So basically, true healing is coming back to homeostasis. And I have 5-6 years ago, I was French. Like, people looked at me and went, I have no idea what you're talking about. Except for a few, people I used to go off to do retreats at, Costa Rica or Peru or Turkey or whatever. But now it's getting like there's more and more people who are asking the questions. There's more people who are more interested. The Costa Rica one happened, and then there's an opportunity in Byron that's coming about. And, I'm finding now that it's moved from the fringe to the fringe middle.
Yeah.
So it's heading towards the right direction, and I'm activating it with some energy and connecting with people like yourselves who are like-minded, to move forward, to take it out there. So yeah, I hope that helps to answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, just another quick one. I think Gary might want to ask a question, but a quick one. What's happening now and what you're seeing, and this sort of higher level of engagement, and maybe acceptance, and maybe actually a real wish to have people like yourself to work with and so on. Do you think that actually the last few years, where to coin a term, it's been quite tough and tumultuous for many, do you think actually on some side of that, not wanting to make value judgments, but on some side of that has actually accelerated the chance of yourself and people like you who have this ability and intuitive knowledge that they can bring together, that actually it's becoming sort of easier for people to accept and to want that sort of work?
100%, absolutely. Like, I think the catalyst, the long dark night of the soul, that kind of like, the cauldron of sort of lockdowns and everything that went on in the last few years, which was, to the point of absolute tyranny. I mean, it's not call it anything else other than the tyranny that was involved in the name of a health scare. And I think it's like people have come out and they're questioning it, and they're like looking for alternatives, and they've lost a lot of their trust in the allopathic system. Just the allopathic system was, held up as the sky of everythingness, if that's such a word. But basically it's like people are questioning, and they're looking for answers, and they're looking for ways to heal themselves from all of this. And a lot of it is going within, because they're like, there comes a point where their awareness, their point of suffering during all of this comes to a point where they either go into a state of cognitive denial, or like Stockholm type syndrome, the trauma, and they stay in that space, or the pain is so great of the suffering that they then break out, go into a state of self-awareness, and come back into themselves to see what they can heal within. And I think that's really important, because I myself personally had to face, I just wanted to get out there and fight, because it was just also morally unjust and wrong. And I could see through it. I could see that the program wasn't working on me. And I was fighting it. And that fight was really fighting against injustice, which I needed to go within to see what injustice I was perhaps maybe doing to myself within. So therefore, there comes this point of a journey that the last 3 years have pushed through. And, when you start to understand and read different clients, and you can read them and understand them, then you can kind of help solve their problems through, kind of a more holistic, integrated approach. So within comes the design.
And it seems that sort of empathy over what's gone on and what people have gone through, and the spaces that they might want to live in and the world that they want to inhabit. That the great thing about architecture is that all of those things can be informed into the buildings in a way. It seems to me what you're talking about is in a way that works on that wholeness again, bringing everything back into balance.
Yeah.
More and more people will be seeking that and needing it, you know, as a way of healing and wholeness. Now I'm conscious of time, unfortunately, today, Joe, because as you know, this is a quick sort of biography, a snapshot of where you're at the moment, and we hope to do many more episodes and podcasts and so on with you involved, so that we can do deep dives into specific areas of your life, of obviously what you do in terms of your day-to-day work, but also the genesis for all of those things. So when did you have things like these, the dark night of the soul that you just referenced? How long has an awakening been occurring in you? And do you feel that's paralleled with other people around you or not? And with the planet as a whole as well? Because I think most people involved in this sort of space also feel that there's a planetary thing going on at the same time as there's this internal journey happening too. So
yeah,
I think maybe we can touch on all of those points specifically again at some point. Gary, is there anything you want to add?
I just think in closing, I'm not sure if Joe's aware, there's actually what they call energy enhancement healing centres that are already being rolled out around the world. I think
wow.
I think there's, last time I looked, there was like 4 in the UK already, most of them in the US.
Oh, wow.
I do think it's an exciting time, because if you can combine what you're doing so that the building itself is also adding to the new technology that's going inside there. And I think again it adds to the fact that because things are changing, that these new ideas can now be supported. There's enough people interested in these alternatives that they can actually now grow. You know, it's an exciting time.
It is an exciting
after
time.
what we've been through.
Yeah, totally.
It's a catalyst. It's a catalyst for change. So
it's definitely a catalyst for change. It's the eye of the needle. The camel's going through the eye of the needle, and it's like, whoa, there's paradise on the other side.
I think we have to take that opportunity. You know?
Yeah, well, totally agree. And I know that there's different types of modalities of healing out there, and there's just your everyday wellness centers that do the cryotherapy and the infrared sauna and all those, even those things that most people wouldn't even have questioned or asked about those things. Now we're even more advanced than that. So absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing how far it's come, isn't it, really?
Yeah. But super exciting times, guys. I just feel like, what we're about to be on the verge of and what's coming. And as you said, Gary, the building itself forms part of the space that heals as well as what's in it.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. But thank you, guys. That was a really lovely, even it was quick, but it was lovely to touch base and talk about all this. And I look forward to diving deeper within the next sessions.
Great.
Yeah, likewise. We'll come back and revisit, and we can very much look at those different segments that make up your world, and of course we'll have a resonance to thousands and hopefully millions of people across the globe, not just in the UK or just in Australia, but all over the world. Anyway, so for now, thank you very much, Joe, for explaining a little of how your world looks at present, and we hope to come back to you soon. Thank you very much for joining the Quantum Bridge.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Casper. You have a lovely evening.
And you.
Bye.
Quantum Bridge out.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.